everyone. Thank you for joining me for another AppScan Tuesday session. Today we will talk with Cody Travis from our Tech Advisors team, um, and we will talk about AppScan Standard. Hi, Cody. Nice to have you
Hi,
here.
can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you very much, very well.
Good. It's good to be on.
Thank you. Um, Cody is a special. I mean, he can provide special insight here because Cody in the past used to be an AppScan Standard customer even. Cody was doing penetration testing, network testing, and it can give us the insight of both the customer and now the expert from our side. So, Cody, let's start with something simple, maybe or odd or hard. What do you like about AppScan Standard as a customer?
As a customer, previously I was using AppScan and a competitive tool together. We found ourselves using AppScan standard a lot more when we were scanning our REST APIs. The AppScan login management mechanism is much more flexible, at least in my situation, where I was able to capture that data, modify the request to capture the login info that I wanted, and then further scan the REST APIs based on stuff that I've recorded. So that's something that AppScan is very good at.
Cool. And login is definitely something that we are going to talk about today. Some maybe a fun fact about the action-based login that we will talk about a bit. Action-based login is a change that we did in AppScan a few years ago. It started when I was on the dev side before I moved to product management, and a member from my team, Lior Margalit, came one day and told me, "Hey, I think I have an idea on how to solve all those login issues that we have." In the past, we were constructing the login based on requests, HTTP requests, and updating the JavaScript. And we changed the way that we do it. Back then, we did the first pass of it, and of course, AppScan progressed much since then and productized. But now, all those actions, all those when we play login, when we record, even when we crawl, we do it on top of the browser layer. From my perspective as a product management today, I see a lot of improvements there. But Cody, when you go out there and you try to help customers, in difficult POCs, in complex login scenarios, do you see a difference with that?
Yes, so the action-based login is very powerful when you're trying to scan very client-side JavaScript-heavy applications. Today we see that more and more. We have Angular, React frameworks that are very strong, very heavy on the JavaScript on the client side. And action-based login really does allow the DOM to render before apps can trust to make any actions on those DOM elements. So if there is a lot of client-side JavaScript going on, AppScan is able to capture that as part of the login.
Yeah, I think it was a great step from AppScan's direction to understand that, hey, there are browsers out there. They're already handling all those JavaScripts. AppScan is not a browser, right? It's a vulnerability scanner tool. It's meant to find security tests, security vulnerabilities, and why not leverage the industry's standards and leaders' tools for that? And you are going to show us some of the AppScan standard login capabilities, right, today?
Yeah, so if I'm going to go ahead and start the demo, what I'm going to show today, I'm going to verify that you can see my screen, Eitan.
Yep, we can see a screen.
All right, perfect. One of the things I wanted to do today was show a sequence record that is using close to like a real world application instead of just a demo application. A really good example of that would be AppScan on Cloud. AppScan on Cloud is our cloud-based scanning platform. Does static, dynamic, open source, mobile, IaaS, pretty much everything. But that system is, its front end is a single sign-on application, just like any other. So I thought it would be a good place to start a demo.
Sounds good. By the way, we are going live here, so things may happen, of course. But no pressure.
All right, no pressure. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and click Start Login, and I'm going to select the Chromium browser. And we'll see what happens. All right, so I'm presented with the login page, which is good. And put in my username. So one thing to notice is I'm very careful about my keystrokes. I'm actually clicking sign in, clicking next, because I found that actually clicking the buttons registers that DOM event much better than actually hitting the enter key.
Okay.
So I just seem to have more success that way. So now that I'm logged into the site, I just clicked I'm logged into the site. AppScan is going to analyze those actions in HTTP request, correlate those, try to select which cookies, which HTTP parameters, which headers are session trackers or session identifiers, and then track those in future playbacks.
And it's important to understand, I mean, folks will see this now, I mean, while we saw only 4 or 5 pages, the amount of requests sent behind the scenes because it's so heavy on Angular and uses Okta and uses, so it's a lot. I think, Cody, you are going to be able to show us later what was played?
Yes, so when I do a normal demo, and we have our demo site, there's only one HTTP request that makes the login. That's the most basic, simple scenario. In real world situations, real world applications, you're going to see, 10, 20, sometimes even 100 HTTP requests behind the scenes that actually make the login. So to start digging under the covers of what it actually did, I can go to Review and Validate tab under Login Management, and we can actually take a look at all the requests. One way to do that is just to select the in-session detection request dropdown. You can see all these HTTP requests that AppScan has to choose from when it chooses an in-session detection request.
And for those who are not aware with in-session detection, basically this is the key of having a successful dynamic analysis scan. I mean, to be able to log in and to be able to tell that you're stayed logged in and not being kicked out of session and just sending tests on out of session, without being logged in.
Yeah, so what's happening here is AppScan is choosing a request, and it's going to make that HTTP request periodically throughout the scan. When that request finds the pattern that I've selected in green here, of course, AppScan chose a pattern for me. When it finds this pattern in that HTTP response, it's going to assume that we're in session. And if it doesn't find that response, it's going to assume we're out of session and then try to log in again. So this is a very important setting in your scan for success because it manages how AppScan determines whether or not you're in session or not.
So a funny thing here, Cody, is that I was blabbering about action-based login and how awesome it is, but we can see here that AppScan actually chose to use request-based. Can you explain the difference here?
Yeah, so with this drop-down, you're going to be able to choose between action-based and request-based. One of the cool things is that AppScan found that the request-based worked better in this situation. One of the reasons I think is because of the API call that the browser made behind the scenes to the REST API of ASOC using a bearer token, which is the reason why I think it chose the request-based better. It kind of ties back to when I said that AppScan does a really good job at scanning REST APIs, is that it was able to recognize that, hey, I can make this one HTTP call, capture that bearer token, and then reuse it in the scan. And it kind of did that in an intelligent way.
Okay, cool. So let's play make-believe, and let's say that this one wouldn't work automatically, that the validate would fail. What would you do then?
All right, so you have to think about what it's doing here. What I would do is take a look at these in-session detection requests and see if I could find a better one than the one AppScan chose. AppScan chose this user info REST API call as the in-session detection request, which is very smart because it's going to return a 200 OK response when it's valid, and then it's going to return a 401 when I'm out of session. And so I can actually take a look at that if I click this advanced pattern selection button here. And what it brings up is 2 separate HTTP requests. The left one is the in-session request and response. It's going to show what happens when I made the login myself, in a real login. The right side is what's going to happen when you strip out all those session trackers, and it's going to view this as somebody just making this REST API call flat out. One thing you can see is that it picked my name as the in-session detection request. I don't actually really like that. Because I'm familiar with this API, I know that it's going to return a 200 OK when I'm logged in. So instead, I'm going to track the phrase 200 OK as opposed to my name, because that my test account may change names. I can't guarantee that that name is going to be the same from one scan over the other, but I know that this response code is going to be 200 no matter what.
Okay. So basically, we saw the in session and the out of session. That's the out of session comes, I guess, from the replay from the validate that we saw earlier when AppScan at the end of the login did something more in analysis.
Right. During that validate step, it's going to do that analysis on all the session identifiers. And I can click that session ID tab and you're going to see all of the different HTTP parameters and cookies and headers that it was able to find. And you can see that some of these are checked and some of these are not. The ones that are checked, AppScan considers them session identifiers and is going to track them from request to request to make sure those values populate from request to request.
Cool. So even headers you mentioned here. That's impressive. I'll put you in the spot here. How often do you need to go there when you have POCs? And hey, it's live, so I didn't prepare you. You can answer whatever you want.
No, it's so one of the first things I do, whether I'm running a workshop or doing some training or actually in a POC, talking a customer through a scan, is making sure this request, either action-based or request-based login works. Because if this doesn't work, then your scan is going to fail. It's going to be the first litmus test of a successful scan. So I do spend quite a bit of time in here when I'm instructing customers on how to run scans.
And can you show us also the action-based view?
Yeah, so one of the great things about the action-based view is that when AppScan does choose it to work, you can come in here and edit the actions. You can see that it automatically puts a weight in the front of every page load. That is because by default it's 0, but it's really good that it does that because it does allow you to come back behind AppScan and change this value from 1 to say 3 and give it a 3-second delay when the page loads. That gives all that JavaScript time to load if there's a lot of stuff going on. One of the things I'll advise customers is that if your action-based login is not working on the first try, add some delays in between your clicks and things like that, in between your pages. And a lot of times that will solve the issue.
Yeah, I guess because at the end, AppScan just replays it on top of the browser and it works much faster, so sites are not loaded properly sometimes in those cases, as you mentioned.
Yeah, especially JavaScript that's analyzing what keystrokes you make. When you type in a login, a lot of times there's some JavaScript analyzation going on about, hey, that's not a real email address, or that's not the right kind of password format. All that stuff is trying to validate everything on the client side, and that stuff takes CPU cycles. And so a lot of times adding a delay in there gives the browser a chance to render all that stuff.
Cool, thanks. And as you can see, we have the replay button there, which basically allows you to see, it pokes a browser, and here you go. It will pop a browser and actually replay with the delays that Cody added. Otherwise, it would go much, much faster. It adds with the delays when we click on a button and everything is filled. So very easy for anyone to validate the changes, to evaluate the changes to make sure it works. I'm going to bring you back, Cody, and getting away from your we switched sides now on the view. So thanks, Cody, for this demo. I wanted to know, because we are going to do a lot more sessions of these, and next week I'm actually having Billy Weber on the show, and she will tell us more about some of the new updates in V10 with test optimization and AppScan Connect, how you can take this and make it bigger to your enterprise solution. AppScan Standard is more of a desktop tool. From your perspective, Cody, what do you think we should tell audience? What should we talk about with AppScan Standard or any other that you would want to see on the show? And we have 25 seconds for this, so go ahead.
Yeah, so if I had 20 seconds to plug AppScan Standard for more advanced features like that, definitely integrating it with AppScan Enterprise, showing the integration features, showing AppScan Connect, the new way that AppScan integrates with AppScan on cloud, showing those features where, even though AppScan Standard is the standalone tool for pen testers, it can also integrate into enterprise tools like ASOC and AppScan Enterprise.
Cool. So we are doing that next week. Thanks, Cody, for joining the session, and hope to have others joining next ones. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.